Cool Snubs is here. Louise. She's going to tell us about peanuts.
Are we recording?
Yeah.
Um, I graduated from South Summit High School in 1957. I was salutatorian, that means second in line. Our advisor told Mom that I tied with my cousin David Goodworth for valedictorian, but since he was a boy and he'd probably have to provide for his family, they thought it was better to let him be valedictorian, and I was salutatorian. I think nowadays they'd call it co-valedictorian, but anyway, I didn't know the difference.
Were you mad?
I didn't even know the difference. Mom told me later.
Not after you knew the difference, were you mad?
No, I didn't care. I'm from the olden days. I believed their theory that boys would earn the living.
What
I
about
didn't care.
what about right now? Now,
Yeah, uh, well, I think now it might be okay to have it co-valedictorian, but don't care much. I'm not much of a women's liber, I guess.
do you want me to go protest in South
No,
Summit
I'm
right
not
now?
going to burn down the city over it. Um, then, sometime in my teen years, uh, I don't know what I said, but Mom said, "Well, yeah, you'll go to college." I said, "Oh, really?" And she said, "Yeah." Uh, John and Marge did, and Irma graduated, and yeah, you will. So I just always assumed I would. I got a scholarship in high school, a PTA scholarship, and that helped. In the summer after I graduated, I was with Ken and the neighbors, Lewis's, and I said, "Well, I'm kind of scared to go to BYU." And Bowen Lewis, who had been a student there, said, "Oh, that's ridiculous. Thousands of people have gone to BYU for the first time and they didn't get lost and they didn't get hurt, and you'll be just fine." And that really did help me because I'd hardly been out of the Summit County up to that time in my life. um, so in the fall of 1957, Mom and I left home to go to Provo to BYU, and I remembered that the hills were covered in autumn leaves, and they looked really pretty, and I had kind of a feeling of nostalgia, and I kind of felt like, well, this is the closing of a chapter for me and the opening of another one. So we got to Provo. I had already signed up for to live in Heritage Halls, and that was housing where 6 girls lived together in an apartment, 3 bedrooms and a kitchen, and then there was a common area outside that all of the apartments could use, all the girls could use. Uh, Mom took me to Carson's Market to buy a broom, and then that same market later became Kent's Market, and currently, now in 2020, it's Creamery on Ninth, owned by BYU. But we used to buy our groceries there. we Our housing was set up so that we cooked together. So there were 6 of us in an apartment. Uh, the rent was $25 a month. Each one of the 6 of us put in $5 a week, and we took turns cooking. So when it was my week to cook, I bought the groceries and I prepared a meal for Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday night, and Sunday dinner. I guess I don't remember now if it's the noon meal or the night meal, and then some other food for people that could help themselves for breakfast.
Your rent was 25 per person a month.
Yes, $25 a month per person. Uh, Minimum wage was 80 cents. Gasoline was 25 cents a gallon. I majored in homemaking education. I really loved all of the classes. Um, I I worked at the Night Mangum cafeteria my junior year, maybe sophomore and junior year. Uh, I was dorm president my junior year. I'd been elected to be the dorm president, and so we
Did
had.
you did you campaign for it, or did people just nominate
I
you?
didn't campaign for it. I didn't even want it.
Did you get special privileges, like you could let boys into your dorm room after hours or anything?
Absolutely not. I was supposed to be the policeman to make sure the other girls didn't let their boyfriends in.
And did you ever catch anyone?
Somebody caught one of them that came in after curfew, and I don't know what I was supposed to do about it, but I was kind of involved, and it was agonizing for me because I'm not a policeman at heart. So, anyway, it's be mostly the dorm parents that should have been having to deal with that kind of a thing. But we had family prayer every night at 10 o'clock in the common area of the dorm. So I always stayed up for that, and then the girls would goof off and visit and stuff after that. But when I worked at the cafeteria, I had to be to work at 5 in the morning, and so I wasn't getting enough sleep. And when the alarm would go off, I had to absolutely swing my legs out of bed and stand up in order to not go back to sleep. Well, I'd get to work on time and all that was fine, but then when I'd go to class, I'd go to sleep in class. Or if I went to study in the library, I'd fall asleep there. But I enjoyed the classes a lot. When I was a senior, we had a class called home management, and we lived in a house with 5 other girls, and we were supposed to learn things about how to prepare and serve formal dinners and things like that. And one of the experiences is we went to a fancy restaurant in Salt Lake, and I don't know if I'd ever been to a restaurant before, but certainly not a fancy one. I didn't know. So our teacher said, now the most fancy and expensive thing on the menu is such and such. Of course, I didn't know one thing about anything on the menu. I didn't know what the words meant or anything, but so she said this was the most expensive, and I thought, well, I'm here for the experience, so I'm really going to splurge, and I'm going to get the most expensive thing. And so I ordered it, and when it came, it was a cockeyed hunk of raw, bloody meat. I could not even hardly swallow the dang thing. I could not hardly choke it down, and it cost me all that money. Oh, I was so disappointed. I don't even like raw, bloody meat now.
Yeah, I know you don't. The
Um,
two times in my life that you cooked steak, it was.
what? I didn't hear that.
So the two times in my life that I've known of you to cook steak, it was extra well done.
Yeah. And I didn't know that you could send it back. I didn't know anything about anything. Um, when I was at BYU, I was in the BYU marching band for a couple of years. I enjoyed that. One time we took a trip to California with the band to play at a football game. And it was on that bus trip that I learned to play the ukulele. A friend of one of my roommates taught me to play the guitar. That was fun. While I was at BYU, some of the time, my brother Harold also lived in Provo attending Trade Tech. It was called Trade Tech, and Utah Technical College and a bunch of different names. It's now UVU, Utah Valley University. And also part of the time, my brother Kenneth lived in Provo and went to BYU. And Kenneth and his roommates, some of the time, were friends with me and my roommates. And that was fun. One time, right at 10 o'clock, which was the time you lock the dorm, and that's, lock up, I heard a racket and went out in the hall of my apartment, and there was a live chicken squawking and fluttering and flapping and trying to climb up the wall. Somebody had opened our door and thrown it in right at 10 o'clock at night. Oh, and my roommates were just screaming. So I went and caught the thing. I had a suspicion that it was Ken's roommates that had done it. So I held the chicken and went to the dorm parents and said, "Here's this chicken. It's after 10 o'clock. What should I do?" And they said, "Have you any idea where it came from?" And I said, "Well, I've got a suspicion." They said, "Well, take it back to him and do it and hurry up fast." It was a big, 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 big deal to not be inside locked in at 10 o'clock at night. That was a big, big, big deal. So I luckily had a roommate that had a car, so she took me and the chicken back to Ken and his roommates.
Sounds to me like you were a big deal too.
What?
Sounds to me like you were a big deal.
That I was a big deal?
Yeah, you're the president catching the chicken when everyone else is
Yeah.
screaming.
Well, I was the farm girl that could catch a chicken anyway. I don't know what we'd have done if we'd had to left it up to the city girls. Probably had to call 911, except that didn't exist then. One time, it was a Sunday evening, and me and the girl that shared my bedroom. So we had 2 girls to a bedroom, 6 girls in the 3 bedrooms, and Mary Jean shared my bedroom, and we were out in the commons area. I was visiting Harold, and she was visiting her boyfriend, and at 10 o'clock we came in to our bedroom, and the whole room was filled with crumpled up newspapers. We couldn't see our beds, we couldn't see our desk. We couldn't believe it. And our roommates had been gathering newspapers from all around the dorms for I don't know how many days, and they tricked us and did that. And I believe they didn't just throw them in over our beds and desks. They had taken the beds and desks out the back door into the garbage area and filled that whole thing with newspaper. So we had to swap that out.
Tell me the names of your roommates.
You're garbled. I didn't hear you. What?
Tell me the names of your roommates.
Justin, can you hear him?
Tell him the name of your roommates.
Oh, the roommate that was my roommate then was Mary Jean. Can't remember her last name.
I just want to hear the names of the weird nicknames of your roommates.
Tell him all the names of your roommates.
Oh my goodness, I can't remember them all.
No, just your favorite ones with the weird nicknames.
Well, we have, there are 5, me and 5 other of my roommates that still are all alive and still are in contact with each other. There's Valerie, and we called her Val. There was Jeanette, and we called her Nettie. There was Mildred Edwards. She goes by Midge, and we called her Charlie Brown. And there was Carolyn called her BB, and there was Carol Aldridge, and we called her Peanuts. And Peanuts loved that. She still loves that. I still call her Peanuts. Midge, that we called Charlie Brown, she didn't necessarily like it, but the year that I was dorm president, I had to be at the dorm. I had to be the first one at the dorm. I was taken with the BYU student officers to Sun Valley to a training / conference for student officers, and so we were there a week early, and then we got back so that we were the first ones in the dorm. And Charlie Brown had lived with me the prior year, and she lived with me this year. And her mother was a sister to, I can't remember if she was a sister to President Kimball, or if she was a sister to President Kimball's wife. I can't remember now. But Charlie Brown's dad was Edwards, and he had been a financial vice president at BYU, and he was a financial advisor to President David O. McKay. So Mildred Edwards / Charlie Brown was high society, and her mother was very proper and very appropriate. So her mother brought her in. I was there, and she came in. I said, "Oh, Charlie Brown, it's so good to see you." And her mother sat me down and gave me a lecture about what's appropriate.
You didn't listen, I hope.
What?
I guess you didn't listen because you still call her Charlie Brown.
I didn't in front of her mother, but we still called her that some. But I don't call her Charlie Brown now, although I call Peanuts Peanuts.
Did they have a nickname for you?
You sound like you're underwater. I can't tell what you're saying. What, Justin, what did you say?
Say it again, Tim.
Did they have a nickname for you?
Oh, they just called me Louie. Peanuts called me Louie. The others, I don't think they had a nickname for me. My senior year, I didn't live in the dorm. I lived off campus. But I was driving Ken's 1950 Studebaker, and the body style was such that my son Joseph would say you couldn't tell if it was coming or going. The front looked a lot like the back. And I think Ken was in the Army then, and I had his car. The folks had moved to Idaho. I grew up in Marion, which was only 50 miles away, but then while I was in college, they moved to Lava Hot Springs, Idaho. But I was driving the car, and it started to pull sideways, and I thought, oh dear, what'll I do? And there was a girl in the dorm that had a free coupon to Firestone Tire for a free brake check. So I took the car down to Firestone, and they diagnosed it and told me that all 4 brakes needed new cylinders and new pads and new everything, and it would cost $50. Well, this was near the end of my senior year. I did not have $50, and I did not believe that I could sell the whole car for $50. There was no way I was going to put $50 into brakes. So I had a roommate that had a boyfriend, and he said, "Well, let's drive it." So he had us jump in, and we went for driving, and I thought the brakes were gonna fail, and we were gonna crash and die and kill us all. And he just acted like it was no big deal, and he said, "Well, you don't need all 4 brakes." He said, "Take it to the gas station that does inspection and have them inspect it." So I did, and they said, "Well, we don't inspect out-of-state cars," because that had the Idaho license. And I said, "Well, will you just check the brakes?" And they said, so they did, and they said, "You've got one brake that has a leak in the kit," I believe they called it, and it would cost $6.50 to fix it. And I said, "Well, thanks." And there was a boy in one of my classes that said he would fix it, and he charged me $2.50 and fixed it. Now I don't know if the brake kit cost $2.50 or if that included labor or if he did the labor for free. I don't know. Anyway, that went from $50 at Firestone to getting it fixed for $2.50. So I sure thought Firestone was crooked. I graduated in 1961. Um, I want to tell you a story not about my graduation, but about Ken's graduation. He graduated a couple of years before I did, I think. Anyway, my folks were at his graduation, and there was the orchestra was tuning up, getting ready for the ceremony, and so they're just, how it is when all the instruments are playing and getting in tune and stuff. And my dad said, "Oh, this is terrible music. I just as lieve listen to Elvis Presley as this." And he didn't like Elvis Presley. So I graduated in 1961 and got a job teaching school in Tabiona, Utah. Small school. I think there were 48 students in the whole high school from 7th through 12th grade, and I taught home ec there. And that's probably enough for this one.
Well, he tells about the marching band.
And my computer says I've got a low battery. What?
You can tell us real quick about the marching band.
What?
Tell them about the marching band.
Well, we practiced and we played halftime programs at the football games.
And you played trumpet.
And I played trumpet, And I would never have dreamed that I could have possibly done that, except that boy Eugene Lambert told me to try out for the band. And so at his encouragement I did, but I don't think anybody tried out that didn't make it, because they needed bodies to march around to make their formations on the...
Did you get a scholarship?
No, I didn't get a scholarship. I had a scholarship for PTA to major in education. I didn't get anything in music.